Deepak Koul is currently working as Senior Manager, Software Engineering at Red Hat. Deepak would be delivering a hands-on lab session on Playwright, MCP, Smarter Test, or Just Hype. To know more about Deepak, we can check the below link. Over to you, Deepak.
Thank you, Yashwini. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Aditya, for having me. I'll go on and share my screen.
While Deepak is setting up.
Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, we can see.
Both of them?
Both of them.
Yes, we can see both of them.
Maybe okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Deepak. I'm a senior engineering manager in Red Hat. And even though from the last 5 odd years, I have been working as a manager of software engineering, but I have a background of around 15 years in quality engineering. Prior to that, I like to speak on those topics, stay in touch with test automation and stuff. So today's workshop is all about Playwright MCP. You might know Playwright as a test automation tool that uses Chrome Dev Tools protocol to automate the browser, and is slightly different than Selenium, which used to use the JSON wire protocol and then the WebDriver interface. So very recently, when the AI boom hit, Playwright also released their MCP server. So this workshop is going to be about talking about their MCP server. Is it important for us people who use Playwright to test their application, or for the test automation community in general? Okay. So the agenda would be, we'll talk about why do we need MCP, and then we'll do a workshop on setting up an MCP client on a local Olama setup. I'll tell you what Olama is, and then we'll set up Playwright's MCP server. We'll see how it works when integrated with the client. We'll use the Playwright tools to work with the browser. And in the end, we'll try to do some comparison with traditional testing, like you are using Playwright, but not Playwright MCP. That's also possible, right? There are almost 99% Playwright users still using Playwright in a traditional way, like automating their front-end applications using Playwright without the MCP confusion. And then we'll open for Q&A. Okay. Okay, so before we do the actual hands-on, I'll quickly like to give everyone some concept of what MCP is. So MCP was a protocol started by Anthropic 2 years ago, possibly, to make it easier for LLMs to talk to services. Because as you all know and might have learned in the session so far, that AI hallucinates if not augmented with some real data and documents. So one way of providing data to LLMs is through RAG, which are mostly static documents. But what about relational data or dynamic data, right? So you need services to talk to your LLM, and for that, instead of an LLM talking to an REST API endpoint directly and confusing itself, they thought that why not create a client server model where you'll put your LLM into a MCP client, and then it will talk to an MCP server, and that MCP server would act as an intermediary between your service endpoint and the LLM, and it
So
will
before you interrupt, the slide is not visible to the audience, and since both the screens are shared, as you explained.
Let me.
We can see the screen, but it's the content on the slide. It's getting it's not visible for the second slide, since both screens are shared.
Okay. Let me then just share one screen and see.
Sure, that will help.
How about now?
Yes,
Yeah.
much better.
Okay.
Yeah, you can, yeah, we can see it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So what happens when you okay, so we were here. So as I said, MCP server acts as an intermediary between your external system. Can be Playwright, can be your Workday or any other software system as a whole, or a set of services. And then you have an AI client. An AI client can be your Copilot, which is an application also, but can also act as an AI client. If you want, you can go ahead and add any public MCP uh, in your AI, in your GitHub Copilot or Cursor or Claude or uh, any other code generation agent, which also acts as an AI client. But if you don't want to do that, you don't have the resources to do that, you can also build your uh, AI client as a simple program. So what actually happens is when you add your MCP, let's say I added Playwright MCP to uh, my AI client, which was a simple Python program. So when I run it, what will happen is it would start the Playwright MCP server first, because it's a node-based server. It would run somewhere on your laptop. It would expose itself on a port, and then your AI client would use the would talk to this server and uh, let's say elicit the response of what does it have. So what does your MCP server have? Around 20 tools in case of Playwright, like open browser, close browser, click on a button, all those things. Most of the other uh, MCP servers also have resources like a document or something, and prompts also. Like if you want to, so what they are telling your their MCP clients is that if you want to use our tools, add this prompt in your LLM to make it behave more predictable than it does. So every tool, if any of you has written tools, written an MCP server or written tools, you'll know that a tool has a definition, declaration. What does it do? So that when an LLM fetches the tool definition, it should know by reading that definition that okay, the user is asking me to explore a website. So should I use the click tool or should I use the navigate tool? So because each tool has a definition written in English, so LLM gets to know that, okay, since it is exploration, I should probably use the navigate tool, not the click tool, right? So every tool has a definition. So the first step is fetching all the tools from your MCP server and their definition. So there is, so why I'm telling you this is, think about when you are dealing with an LLM, there is a limited context window. The context window is tough. You can put uh, the textual stuff or tokens you can put in that bucket when you talk to an LLM. But since most of the modern LLMs are maintain sessions, your chat sessions, right? It's not that you'll say something. If it wants you to put, let's say, 100 MB of tokens in the window, you put those tokens and then you click on send. The LLM gives you answer and then both of you forget about it. It does not happen like that, right? So you'll continue the conversation. So to continue the conversation, every back and forth request has to maintain the context. So if you are consuming 80% of your context in the first chat itself by having, let's say, 20 tools and their definitions, because remember this thing, your client has to pull those tools and their definitions. To give you a better example, all of you might know GitHub. GitHub MCP. GitHub has a public MCP. So for example, if you want to explore public repositories and or your own repository, your contribution status and stuff like that, whatever you go to a browser and explore on GitHub, you can do it in your own AI client like Cursor, Claude, Copilot, or even your Python program. But what GitHub does is it gives you a list of around 120 tools plus prompts as well. So now once you pull, if you have a weak model with a smaller context window, which normally open source has, and if you are planning to work with multiple MCPs, like you want to, let's say you have your Jira MCP and you have your GitHub MCP. Now you are planning to write an email to your VP that this was our last release, this is the stuff we did, and these are the tickets that we closed, and classify those tickets on some infrastructure improvement, some platform improvement, some technical debt, stuff like that. So you'll use both the MCP servers then, right? You'll ask your Cursor or Claude or anything that go to this GitHub project, check the release notes of last release or the release log, look for all the changes I made, and then find out the Jira numbers from that, and then go to Jira MCP, fetch the details of each Jira, and prepare the email in this format for me, right? So you give, you can write all of that in a markdown document for once and use it every month or every 15 days. But the point is, if you are using a weak model while working with around 150 tools, around 120 from GitHub and 30 tools from Jira, your model will not perform well. It might go into a loop or the. So you have to be very smart when you are using MCP. The MCP, not just when using MCP, while also building MCP. Let's say you are owner of a service. You have to be careful about how many, you cannot, if your service has 150 endpoints, you cannot create 150 tools. You have to group tools together to create meaningful impact for your MCP consumer. Okay, so let's look at this diagram. So in the first step, AI client gets all the tools resources from the MCP server, and then you give it some input like explore this website, and then it goes to and it finds out based on the tool definitions that this is the tool I have to use. It uses that tool from your prompt. It gets the URL name and then passes that URL name as an argument to that tool and opens a browser on your laptop and starts exploring, looks at. Now, this special thing about Playwright is why does it help us in testing and web scraping is that it does not use a vision model or something else. A vision model is most of you who are from QE background might know that there was this framework called ICE, which we used to implement for visual testing. Like you will you'll use the ICE library in your let's say Cypress or Nightwatch code, and then first you'll take a golden snapshot, a screenshot of your application, save it somewhere in a folder, and make changes. The developers would make changes, and after they were done making changes, you'll take, in the testing phase, you'll take another screenshot, do a pixel by pixel match of both the things, and if there was some, let's say some overlap of UI, a box was misaligned, it would raise an error. That is vision based testing, but Playwright uses a different approach. Playwright has an option to get the accessibility tree of a browser. So if your application is open, it would get the accessibility tree of the entire page as well as let's say the head component or some div component. And based on that, it would find out the names or role or data ID, those kind of locators of each of the element. So the point is, even if you are making changes, there is a UI change, the placement got changed in a later release, the test would not fail. The locator would still say stay intact. Okay, so this is the flow. The user query goes to MCP client. As I said again, I'm repeating it. MCP client can be anything. It can be Copilot, Cursor, Claude, or your own Python program. So I'll show you both the variants today. I'll show my Python program as well as MCP client in Cursor. Okay, now let's also talk about Olama. So Olama is a model runtime for your laptop. So most of the people who cannot afford OpenAI keys and services for major model providers, usually if they have such kind of a laptop, like you have Silicon M2, M3 laptops, or even Windows laptops of 16 or 20 gigabits of RAM, you can easily download Olama and run it, and then you pull from Olama's registry. You can pull models, smaller models mostly, but still good to do POCs and things like Playwright, explore things like Playwright and other MCP servers. So the Playwright MCP, the client would send the Olama, not Olama, the LLM in the Olama, running through the Olama on a port, would decide that, okay, I have to use, let's, for example, the browser navigate, it would go to the MCP server. MCP server is talking directly to the Playwright that is running the browser. So it will say that open the browser and pass this as the URL. And then you will see the browser open. If you are maintaining session, like most of the important clients like Claude, Cursor would maintain sessions, right, in there when you talk to them. But if you write a simple program, you will not possibly start with maintaining session. So you will say that open browser, it would open browser. Then you'll say that click this button on this browser. It won't do that if you're not maintaining session. So session is important, but the important MCP clients, the bigger MCP clients, maintain sessions by default. So you don't have to worry about session maintenance in Cursor, Claude, and Copilot. Okay, let's see now. So this is my, let me pull it to this side. Can you all see my code screen? Just give me a thumbs up. Okay. So you remember I was talking about an MCP client can also be a simple Python program. This is that simple Python program. So what are we doing? We are asking it to use Olama. So we can also ask it to use Anthropic's API key, Gemini's API key, or ChatGPT's API key, and use those hosted models for playing out with Playwright. But because I have to show you both the things, so I thought for people to explore, it's not necessary you buy something. So to run the Olama, as I said, if you have a capable laptop, go to Olama's website, download the version you want. If for Mac, it's a different version. For Windows, it has a different version. Download it, run it. It's very simple. And once it's running, you can pull a very small light Mistral or Llama 3 from its registry. So once you pull it, So you will essentially have an offline secure model running on your laptop, which can run without internet as well. And something which is secure, if you have a risk of, yeah, like most of the companies don't want people to use AI just with eyes closed. So if you are running something on Olama, it's not a risk. Okay. So we set up Olama and then we set up the MCP client. We establish the connection, and more importantly, we also do the streaming and session management, so that if I ask it to open a browser, after one request, both of us should not forget everything. I have to do more action in that browser, in that session. So session management is there, and that's all. And if I open my, okay, let's, can you all see my command prompt? Okay, so this is my client.py, and I am passing it the Playwright MCP server as an argument. Okay. Okay, so as you see, it is connected to Playwright's MCP server. There are 22 tools available that I can use. And it is using Olama model, GPT OSS 20 billion parameter. So it is the same model that was in our code. If you look at here, right? So my Olama right now has 6 models. I can use some other model as well. Okay, so let's ask it to explore saucedemo.com. So sauce demo is a, I think most of you might know because you are from test automation background. A test website by Sauce Labs where you can do practice test automation. We'll give it some time. Okay. So it says so it has done the exploration. As I said, the Playwright returns the entire accessibility tree of the page, from which the Playwright is able to get the locators as well. So it has created some basic login tests for me. If you look, so all these locators are genuine. These are not hallucinations. These are if you copy and paste this test in a running Playwright framework, it would run. And then it created a login flow with invalid credentials and adding product to cart and stuff like that. The point is, with this minimal setup, your the MCP client, then you can control. Let's go back to the MCP client again and look at the system prompt. This is very important. Can you all see it? Okay. So you are a Playwright test generator. You are given a scenario and you need to generate a Playwright test for it. And just the basic stuff that we want this MCP client to do. So in the end, you will have good test cases, but that's just one part of the Playwright MCP functionality. The second part is web scraping. So let's say you want to you are planning a travel to some country and you want to build your itinerary. So normally there are websites that make itineraries for you, right? But what about you want a very custom, specific to your taste kind of itinerary? So what you will do is you'll add some weather MCP in the same client. Instead of running it with Playwright MCP, we'll run it with weather MCP, and then maybe sky scanner MCP, and then we'll change the prompt to from Playwright testing generator to something like you are an expert travel agent. When a user asks you to make an itinerary for a particular city on a particular date, find out all the relevant news, like there might be protests in that city, there might be some security risk or all those things, or maybe there might be elections going on in that city. The not just the weather part, the good places that you can easily Google, but very tricky things that we often forget, like maybe there is a disease outbreak around that area, or maybe in there is some issue in the place where you will have to hop, like it's not a direct flight from your city. So there are so many minute things that you can achieve if you take control over your MCP client. Okay, let me go back to. So we did a simple demo with the local client. So let me show you cursor as well. Can you all see my cursor window?
Well, it might be good idea to zoom in a little bit.
Okay. How about now?
Yeah.
Okay, if I go to my cursor tools and MCP section, you go to settings, go to tools and MCP. You see I have added GitHub, Jira MCP, Playwright, Chrome DevTools. These four MCP servers in my cursor. So I'll disable GitHub because I don't need. As I said, if the more you add, the more tools it would talk to during your chat with the LLM, and that would cost you money, and that would bloat your context window. And once the context window is bloated in the first few queries, you can be assured that if it takes more than 4 or 5 tries to solve a problem, you're not going to reach that reach that successful outcome in that chat session. So it's always wise to not use a lot of MCP servers together or not keep them on always. Okay, so let's see. Let me ask it. So it has Playwright enabled. Let me ask it the same question. Explore. What happened to my spellings? Explore source demo.com and create. Now it has a place to create test cases, right? It has a project open where it can create test cases. It is an IDE, unlike the Python client that I showed you. Okay, let's see. Let me increase this size a bit more. Now you see this, it said that the user is asking me to explore this and that, and I'll explore. This is called planning. This is a very important step of agentic flows. So we ask the when we create agentic flows. We write the prompts in a way where the LLM thinks that whatever the user has said is a goal, and then thinks, not actually thinking, but makes us believe that it is thinking, and splitting the end-to-end goal into smaller tasks like task 1, task 2, task 3, and then one by one doing those tasks. So when I do the same thing in my command line Python client versus when I do the same thing in cursor, I get more anxiety in the command line because I have not done all of that which cursor does, right? It will, when it gives you step by step, so it removes your anxiety. Something is going on, and uh, like those e-commerce apps, right? You order something, and then it shows you that, oh, your order is getting packed, your order has left our warehouse, your order is on the way, stuff like that. So the idea is to not give you the pre-parcel anxiety. That's the same case with these better MCP clients. Okay, now you see there is there is an already an MCP Playwright MCP server, not the client, MCP server running somewhere, and it is getting issues connecting to the browser tools because there are duplicate Playwright servers running on my laptop now. But since it has control of my command line as well, so I can ask it to fix it. So since it did not create the actual test cases, it created a document for me uh, that I'll create these 70 plus test cases with authentication and logging, which I do not require. I want it to open an actual browser and work with sourcedemo.com to let me see again. Try again. Okay, it has opened the source lab now, if you see. By the time it completes running, so once it completes running, creating those test cases, it could add them on this left side project tree so that you can simply run it and possibly push it to your repository. So the point is, it's always better to use Playwright from a costly IDE or MCP client like Cursor or Claude or GitHub Copilot instead of your own custom client. So there are pros and cons. There is cost involved here, but again, you don't get the anxiety. It creates test cases, and then you can ask it to run these test cases in the same session. So one quick trick that I wanted to show you about Playwright MCP server is, so this is the Playwright MCP server. So if you want to add a new server, you just add a comma here and then add the JSON for a new server. So if you look at this thing, minus extension, this is optional. If you remove it, it will still run your Playwright MCP client inside Cursor. But by adding minus extension, what it does is you can connect your browser to a working session. For example, if you have your, so a lot of people face problems with authentication, right? I cannot automate something that requires two-factor authentication. So what if you already authenticate, the browser is open, then you want Playwright MCP to connect to that open browser and then drive it forward from that point onwards and explore the web, that web portal and write test cases. So this minus extension flag is for that purpose. It's kind of insecure also. Let's assume you have your banking website open. So once it has access to your live browser, you can assume that it has access to the entire browser, not just a particular tab. Okay. Let me go back to the slide deck. Okay. Can you see my slides again?
Yes, we can see your slide.
Okay. So, we need to talk about the comparison with the traditional testing. As I said, MCP is relatively new. There are issues because as soon as MCP came, creating MCP servers was so easy that everybody who had some programming expertise started creating them without worrying about the context window of the LLMs. So it's like, what do we call it in testing terms? The contract testing, right? So you are consuming a service. You ask them to send the response in a particular format. They made change to their service, and now, even though the response is correct, but the format is not. So it is breaking your application now, right? So for that, people used to have contract tests and some kind of contract between producer and the consumer. The same is the case here. The people who are building MCP servers are not worried about the amount of data or tokens that, or the number of tools that they should have in that MCP server to achieve complete functionality of the service they provide. They are not ready to sometimes leave some endpoints and just reuse the important ones in a single tool and stuff like that. So the Playwright MCP is a way of describing test automation. So you go to your chatbot, LLM, or MCP client in our case. You tell it that you want test automation for this website. You provide the URL, and then you leave up to LLM to decide on what test cases it would run. You can give it a hint, or maybe you can write down a markdown document. You can provide it some areas that I want test cases in this area, about security, login, checkout, stuff like that. And it will use that, not that it will not. In the end, in let's say 2 to 3 hours, you will have all the locators, all the test cases, all the boilerplate code that you can ask again your cursor or copilot to run and fix. And very lately, I think last month, Playwright also released Playwright agents. So Playwright agent is nothing but, let's say, in terms of GitHub Copilot, it's just a markdown file with you. You can use the same LLM. It uses the same Playwright tools, but every agent has a different instruction and examples. So the creator agent has instructions for creating test cases. The execution agent has instructions for executing test cases, and the uh, healing agent has instructions for fixing the test cases like locators or timing issues and all of that. But the same LLM, 3 different markdown files, and they released them as agents for. The point is they are trying to make life easy for Playwright developers. Okay, so what are the disadvantages? I have talked about this from the beginning of the session. Even when the modern LLM clients like Cursor and Copilot and Claude, they use caching. If you are using your own client Python file like I did in the beginning, I was not using caching. So even with caching, 22 plus tools with full JSON schemas consume significant tokens, right? Because it's not that you will complete entire test automation in one chat. You will go back and forth, try to improve things. Turns out that it took you, let's say, 20 iterations to reach to a uh, 50 test case number, which are working now, not failing. You would have consumed a lot of tokens, and every token for a paid model is a cost, right? So you have to keep that in mind. How much cost are you using to create these test cases? Is that justified? The second thing is you can make changes in how you work with these tools. Like you can, if you have cursor, you might have cursor rules and workflows. Minimize those cursor rules and workflows. Switch off rest of the MCP servers when you are using Playwright, so that you can reduce your cost. Okay, that's one trick to use. The second thing is LLM makes assumptions about browser state. So statelessness is one thing. So first tool said navigate to page. So it's an async. Playwright is also, when you write code, it's async await, right? So the first action goes on, gives you the result. The second action can start before that. But with LLM in the mixture, there is a pillar of non-determinism, which complicates things. So there can be issues and stuff like that. And the third thing is Claude and Cursor cannot bypass security and sandbox limitation. And for that, Playwright MCP released that minus extension thing that I showed you. But again, that's a risky thing. You should talk to your InfoSec teams in your organization before even using that. What are the technical advantages of using Playwright MCP? As I said, Playwright uses accessibility-based vision. The locator it generates are very strong because they are the locators that you actually can see based on name and role and data ID attributes, if there are any, instead of pixel matching. It's not using any vision model. And then the same thing which I said earlier, interacts with elements based on their role and name. not on position. For you remember earlier in the day we used to write relative XPaths and like / h1 / div / input at the rate name is something. So uh, that is not a locator which is uh, uh, not position based, right? So if somebody adds a new div element between h1 and that div, your locator is broken. But Playwright does not use that kind of positional locator, so fairly safe in that regard. Now we'll also talk about use cases. So should we then stop writing traditional test automation with Playwright if there is Playwright MCP? I don't think so. So Playwright MCP is still good for two things. One, as I said, writing the first initial front load boilerplate code. Modern applications are complex. You all might know it's a source demo versus any modern Oracle application or a Salesforce application or any other application in the enterprise that we all test. They are complex. Their locators are complex. Their login mechanisms. There are pop-ups and all those things, right? Which create problems with automated UI testing. So that's why you cannot rely 100% and let's say fire your entire test automation team because now you have Playwright MCP. That's not going to work. The second good part about Playwright MCP is web scraping. So you build an agent, you use Playwright as a web scraper. You go to a particular website, you can read about what news it has and stuff like that. Or you can also, if you are a front end developer and you add Playwright MCP in your cursor, and you are, let's say you want to make a website, a very cool looking website, but you have some idea, you have seen some other website which has themes and UX that you like, you can just ask Playwright to go to this website, copy the design system and create a similar website with these features using the same design system, and it will do it for you. That's a good use case for Playwright for developers, not for QE. Or ad hoc automation, like you go to some place, it's not repeatable, but once in a while you go to some place and click on a button to do something. That's also one of, and data extraction is one thing that you can do. You go on a, let's say, results website, capture the entire table, put that table into PDF, convert it into PDF and share it with the team, stuff like that. So these all are the actual use cases of Playwright with MCP that were slightly more complex to do with the older traditional Playwright. I mean, people used to use the old Playwright for web scraping, but these modern things, like you scrape the web and what do you do with the data you got from that web page? You create a new website, you convert it into tables and stuff like that. That is new and easier now. Okay, so let's also do through this table some, so there are these 5 attributes, like flakiness of a single test case, or let's say locators in general. In traditional, if you have well written test cases, there is low flakiness. With MCP, there is slightly high flakiness because, as I said, LLMs can get confused. You cannot, for running test cases, it's not good. It's not a good thing for running test cases or doing testing, trusting the LLM to do the testing. That's not a good thing. For debugging, in traditional MCP, traditional Playwright, you have stack traces. You look through the steps. Your IDE tell you that, okay, this test case failed on this particular line because I could not find the locator or something timed out or something like that. But the LLM would not show you the same log. whatever it gets from the MCP Playwright MCP server, it would convert in its own language, and then it, from inside it's trying to help you by converting the log. But we are used to reading logs, right? There is no need to convert it to simple English and lose the meaning of what the stack trace or log is actually trying to say. About reproducibility. So if you write a test case, Playwright, simple Playwright test case of Google search, and the internet is working, you run it 100 times from 100 different machines, it would run 100 times with the same result. You cannot say the same thing with LLM. It can fail for 20 different reasons, which could be totally new reasons. With traditional Playwright, you have version control. With prompts, you don't have. I mean, people are trying to version control the prompts, and but still, let's say if you are using a particular model, your testing was doing fine, but what if Cursor releases a new version of their IDE, or adds a new model, changes some settings in their model? So then there is a change that you cannot control, right? And with CI/CD, you can run your traditional tests in GitLab actions or GitHub pipelines. But if you use MCP to actually do the testing, end-to-end testing, automated end-to-end testing, that takes money. Okay, so where are we headed if that's the case? My idea is we will have to use both together. The Playwright MCP generates the boilerplate code, the first push that you make to your repository, and then the test engineers review, make commits to the repo, change the stuff. They can also tell either Cursor or Claude to use a particular framework for writing Playwright scripts, and then you can use. I think that would be the more balanced approach, using MCP to write the initial huge effort, and then using your own test automation engineers to improve and maintain that test suite for the longer term, which increases the productivity for both the parties. The second thing that you can do is, if you are running tests, you can use tests with MCP fallback. So let's say your test cases failed. Some of the test cases failed. You can ask MCP to possibly fix them, like there is a healing agent in Copilot. So there can be a fallback. But again, that is risky. Let's say 50% of your test cases failed. If you rerun them with MCP, that would take a cost. And if you rerun them 5 times a week, that would increase the cost. So cost is something that you have to keep in mind. All right. So what I'll do now is, I have this client code that I can share with you.
Deepak, would you like to take a question? Shubham has a question.
I'm open to questions.
Shubham, would you like to unmute and speak with Deepak directly on the question that you have?
Yeah. Hi, Deepak.
Hi, Shubham.
Hi. So Deepak, my question is like, do we need to change our existing Playwright test cases in order to use MCP, or like we can adapt it later? Let's say if I'm working on any project and later on I've realized that, we can use MCP later.
There is absolutely no need to use. If you like your current Playwright test automation setup, that would in fact become a, let's say, a reference architecture for later version of the MCP to look at and add test cases and write the code in a similar style. So you don't have to worry about that. So if do you like your current Playwright test automation framework?
Yes, especially the flakiness part this you just
Yeah,
explained. So I
yeah,
think
yeah.
that is, yeah.
And plus, the one thing about old repositories is the team has familiarity with it, right? They know which file to go, where is the, let's say, where are the page files, where are the test files, where are the utilities. So there is familiarity of the code base. We should not relinquish that for making it really modern. So once in future you decide that you'd like to use Playwright MCP, well, let's say you used Cursor, you'll open the same project in Cursor. You'll ask Playwright MCP to analyze. You'll ask the Cursor to analyze your code base, and then use Playwright MCP to add more tests in a similar fashion. You get my point?
Right.
Any other questions?
I have
Thank
a
you.
question,
Yep.
Deepak. How much to test to gain confidence with the results that we are getting? I think initially you mentioned that if we are not getting a steady response in 3 to 4 times, right? That is how you mentioned. Then we have to change our prompt and approach, the way we are progressing, especially when working with different MCP servers. So I would want to understand from an output point of view, how much to test to gain confidence, because there's a cost involved with token, right? Something from your
Right.
experience, that would be great.
Okay. So what you can do is, see, if you are using uh, a, a professional ID or MCP client like Cursor or Claude, you can ask it to, it's Cursor's duty to create the test case, run it, to tell you that it worked fine. Because it is, imagine it has the Playwright tools, right? If it can create Playwright code for you, it can also open a browser and run that test for you. So you will have live results. There is no back and forth there. The idea is it should not forget your business logic, but that is then up to you to decide whether it, you read the test case it wrote, and you tell it, you can tell that whether it asserted on the right business logic or not. But from the technical perspective, it is Cursor's or Copilot's duty to run it for you and tell you that, okay, I created 20 tests. I also ran them in a browser, and all of them were passing or failing, depending on whatever the status was.
Sure. Do we have any other questions? I guess no. So Deepak, I think you were showing something, right? We have a few minutes more.
So I was showing this client library that I showed you at the beginning. So what you can do is go to Alama, download based on what operating system you have, run it, go to a terminal, and let's say you do Olama list, and it tells you what models you have, right? You can use any of these models in the client library. So if you want to actually run MCP client, Playwright MCP client specifically on your laptop, you can clone this repository and run it. This is the command, as I said. You run the client file and pass the Playwright server as argument. But before that, you'll have to install the Playwright server from npm. Okay, that's all.
Okay. Yashashwini, if you're still around, can you flash? I think we don't have any further questions. Yashashwini, are you still there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you, Deepak, for a wonderful session.